Media says Cape Coral is crashing. Sellers are slashing prices, buyers are circling. Is there a storm brewing? Here's the truth. The people who act now before the next wave of headlines hits could lock in deals others will regret missing. And if you saw that recent Wall Street Journal article calling Cape Coral the worst housing market in the US, you're probably wondering if things are falling apart here. In this update, I'm pulling back the curtain on what the media isn't telling you, including a shift in pricing, a trend in buyer behavior, and one stat that could signal the return of real opportunity for both buyers and sellers. So whether you're wondering if it's the right time to buy or debating whether to sell before things dip further, this video is your roadmap. I'm Berry Cessna, your Cape Coral waterfront realtor. And if you have any questions about buying, selling, relocating, or retiring here in Cape Coral, click the link in the description to schedule your complimentary strategy call like so many others have. Let's cut through the noise, look at the real numbers, and make sure your next move is the right one. Let's dive into the July market update and break it all down.
Welcome to the Cape Coral Market Update for July 2025. My name is Berry Cessna, your Cape Coral waterfront realtor, and today we've got a lot of great information to unpack. This last week has been absolutely crazy with the article coming out by the Wall Street Journal talking about how Cape Coral is the worst housing market in the United States. We're going to dig a little deeper into that to find out what exactly is true about that and what is not. You know, with this market report, we look at the numbers. That's what's most important, is the actual numbers. We can see trends, we can see what's going on, what's going up, what's going down. And in this exact report, we're going to actually look at sales prices, median sales prices for the last 5 years, and see where they came from back in 2020, how high they went in 2022, and then where they're at now compared to June 2022. To give you an idea of, are we crashing? Are we correcting? What's happening here in the Cape Coral real estate market? So make sure you stick around for that. A lot of good information going on. Now, as you know, this is the single family homes market update for Cape Coral for July 2025. We're going to look at the last month, the month of June. We're going to go back 3 months, and we're going to go back an entire year to June 2024 to compare those numbers as well. And thank you for joining me. I know I've been getting a lot of people requesting that we get these out a little quicker, so I'm trying to get this one out a little bit quicker now. I've been talking to a lot of people because lots going on here in the Cape Coral market. So let's jump into it. First up, we have to understand market indicators. This tells us exactly what's happening in the market, supply and demand. Inventory tells us all about the supply. This is how many homes are currently available in the city of Cape Coral on the real estate market. Median price point. This is the median price point. 50% of the homes are selling above this amount. 50% of the homes are selling below this amount. Days on the market. How many days are homes sitting on the market before going under contract? Now, back in 2022, 2021, we were seeing homes on the market for 10 days, 5 days, around those. And then now they're up into the 40s, 50s, 60 days. And that's where it's been for the last couple of years. So we're going to look at any changes there. And then, of course, closed sales. How many closed sales have we had in the city of Cape Coral in June 2025? I think this number might surprise you. We did have a really slow start to the year back in January and February, and then we took off during season. We didn't hit quite the numbers we did last year, but we're going to investigate why that was and talk about that a little bit as well. So most important, inventory, how many homes are available, and closed sales, how many actual buyers do we have here in the Cape Coral market? First up is active inventory. So for June 2025, we had 2,994 single-family homes on the market here in the city of Cape Coral. March 2025, 3,419, and June 2024, 1 year ago, 2,691. Now back in February and basically the end of January and into February, we had over 3,500 homes available on the market ready for season. A lot of the buyers came into the market and a lot of those homes were sold. So we currently just fell below 3,000. I actually was not expecting us to fall below 3,000 until we got into next January or February. However, I was surprised to see that number when I pulled the actual numbers here for the month of June. So June 2025, we ended at 2,994 single family homes on the market. And at the chart down here, as you can see, inventory went up last year and then it started dropping a little bit as people took their homes off the market or the market sold. Actually, the biggest indicator here is that people were just not putting homes on the market. We know that our slow season is August, September, October, so we don't see as many new homes hitting the market in that time frame, and that's why the inventory starts to drop. And then once we get into November, December, we start to see inventory increase because they're in preparation for season. If you want to sell your house to the most amount of buyers, are going to be here January, February, March, April, and May. So as you can see, that inventory jumps back up, and now we're starting to trail back off again, dropping quicker than I had expected. Median price point. So for June 2025, we had a median price point of $372,500 here in the city of Cape Coral. March 2025, $280,500. And then June 2024, $392,500. So for 1 year, we went from $392,500 to $372,500. March 380, and actually in May we were at 370. 370 is the lowest that I've seen in the last few years, and then we bumped back up a little bit for June. As you can see the numbers here, like we keep talking about, ever since December of 2022, that's when we hit the 399,000 median price point. We've really been fluctuating around 400,000, going up, going down, going up, going down. So here we are back in February, we hit right at 400,000, and then we've dropped a little bit. Are we going to continue to drop? That's a great question, and that's the concern for a lot of potential buyers and sellers. So let's talk about that here on the next slide. Now this is it. The Wall Street Journal put out an article this last week. It said the worst housing market in America is now Florida's Cape Coral. Kind of scary, isn't it? Especially if you own a house here or you're thinking about buying into the market here. This article went over a lot of things that just weren't true. They're talking about how the streets are empty, cars are speeding down the street because there's no traffic to slow them down. We're extremely busy here. If you try to get over the bridges in the morning, you're sitting in traffic. People are complaining about traffic. Sure, there are some people speeding around, and that's being addressed by our Cape Coral Police Department, but that seems to be a concern, but they are starting to tackle that now. However, we are a community of 242,000 people, 243,000 people. There's a lot of people living here. It's not a ghost town. We are a functioning city moving along just fine. For sale signs every single street, multiple, of course, there's a lot of homes for sale right now. We're at 2,000, almost 3,000 homes on the market right now. However, that has come down since we were at 3,500 just a couple of short months ago. Home prices have been battered by everything from overbuilding to insurance costs. Realtors warn there's further to fall. So overbuilding, yes, a lot of builders have been here. A lot of the big guys like Lennar, D.R. Horton, they've been building. D.R. Horton just bought land just north of Cape Coral for $100 million. They're planning on building 3,500 homes there. Lennar just opened up a new community just north of Cape Coral where they're planning to put several houses there. And then, of course, we have our spec builders and Lennar and D.R. Horton building throughout the city of Cape Coral. We are seeing those new builds start to, we're not seeing as much inventory come to the market. We were seeing almost 200 new homes coming to the market every single month here in the city of Cape Coral. Last month, we saw about 117 brand new homes come to the market in the city of Cape Coral. So that number is starting to drift off as well. Insurance costs, yes, insurance costs are high in some areas of Cape Coral. Other areas, it's not much of a concern. There's a lot of factors to take into that as far as, does your home have a new roof? Is it a newer build? There's different building codes. Building codes changed in 2002, so homes built after 2002 can get lower insurance rates. Of course, depending on the street that you live on. Are you in a flood zone? There's a lot of different variables. And to be very honest, there are some homes here that have incredibly astronomical insurance costs, which that's something that you need to be aware of. And you need to have a good realtor if you are looking for a home to purchase here in Cape Coral, so that you know where to purchase and not have those astronomical insurance costs. Newer builds tend to get lower insurance premiums, depending on your storm protection. There's all kinds of different variables there. But yes, insurance costs are high in certain areas. Other areas, it's not really a concern. Realtors warn there's further to fall. Well, to be very honest with you, as we get into the later months here, once we get into the middle of August, September, October, that tends to be our slow time. We don't have as much inventory. That starts to slip a little bit, but also prices may start to slip a little bit more. I think the opportunity to buy is going to be for the next 6 months. Maybe the next 5 months, because once we get into the end of December, January, and our snowbirds start coming back into the market, depending on how things are happening. Now, if interest rates fall, we're going to see prices jump really fast. If the market tends to stabilize and there's not as much uncertainty as there was this last season, then yes, we're going to see prices start to jump again, because there are a lot of buyers that want to be here. Cape Coral is absolutely amazing, and the value for having a Gulf access canal home it's unlike no other city you're going to find in the United States. But let's jump into the median price. Let's look at price points. So first thing I want to point out is June 2020, we were at $250,000 median price point here in the city of Cape Coral. By the year following, we jumped to 349,750, and we topped out in April of 2022 for the median price point for a single-family home here in the Cape Coral at $465,000. Now that was an 86% increase from June 2020 up until April of 2022. Huge increase. However, as we got into the 2022, interest rates started to jump a little bit. Once we got into the early summer, we saw rates start to go up. Prices started to come back down. And then in September 2022, we had Hurricane Ian go through, which in the last 60 years since Cape Coral has been a city, we've had 4 hurricanes pass within just 20 miles of the city, 25 miles, and Hurricane Ian's the only one that's ever done any real damage to the city. And it took some recovering from that. We did have to recover, but we are back up and running again. Everything's wonderful. However, that did hurt prices and they did continue to drop. So from April 2022 until December 2022, we dropped to $399,995 median price point for a home here in the city of Cape Coral. That was almost a 14% drop. So was that a concern? Of course, that's my opinion. That was our crash here in Cape Coral. From that point to this point, that was a huge percentage loss. Now, if you ask ChatGPT or you try to do some research on this, a housing market crash is typically considered a 20% drop within about a 12 to 18 month period. We're not seeing that at all, not even close to that. So we're not crashing, but we are correcting. So let's talk about where we went for the next couple of years. So from 2022, December 2022, 399, we went up. We went to 400, 420, 410, 414, back to 399, 400, 397, 395, 389, and then 2024 back up to 420, 414, up and down all around the 400 mark. And then once we got into 2025, this year, we started to drop just a little bit further. So we've been around 374, 399, 380, 375, and for the month of June, we finished at 372, 500. Now, the worst housing market in the United States, possibly. Are we in a crash? Absolutely not. Is there opportunity for buyers? Yes. Is it a good time to be a seller? Not exactly. However, there are different opportunities and strategies that you can use to win if you are a seller. But if you're a buyer, you really need to pay attention because there's some good opportunities here. I did expect us to see prices start to increase once we got into 2025, as we do have a lot of second homeowners purchasing here. And my speculation was that when Trump took office, a lot of we do have a very conservative area here. So a lot of those conservative buyers were going to be very excited, have a lot of buyer optimism and buyer confidence. However, as soon as Trump took office, he started doing things with the tariffs up and down and started doing other things that really did not provide buyer confidence. And then, of course, you have the little bit of a spat that we've had with the Canadians. And the Canadians said we're not going to have it. And we're starting to see a lot of Canadians sell their homes here. And we just absolutely didn't see the buyers come in from Canada like we do just about every other year. So I think that played a lot into the prices dropping a little bit more because I thought we were going to have some really good numbers. However, that did not happen. But we didn't drop either. So if we look where we're at, so 465,000 to 372, it's a 20% drop, 19.89. That's over the course of 3 years. Over 3 years, we've dropped about 20%. That's a correction. Now, we're not even close to this 250 mark, and I don't think we're going to get there. I think we are starting to stabilize. Now, year over year, from 392,500 in June 2024 to June 2025, we've dropped 5%. And a lot of people say, well, I'm waiting for it to drop. I'm waiting for it to drop. I'm waiting for it to drop. Well, it's been dropping. However, you are also sacrificing too, because if you're living up there in the north and you're going through those winters and it's brutal, it's absolutely miserable when you could be living down here, retiring down here and enjoying this beautiful sunshine. We're actually able to negotiate great deals for our buyers. And the reason for that is because of articles like this. They make the sellers panic. And when sellers panic, they often give good deals to the buyers, and buyers are able to come in. But we're going to look and see how good of deals that buyers are actually getting right now compared to the list price and chat about that. But I hope this helped you understand where we're at. Are we crashing? We were at 250. We went to 465. We're back to 372.5. Still a long ways from this. Are we going to get back to this? Absolutely not. Are we going to drop a little more? Probably just a bit going into the fall. And then if interest rates drop, if we do see more stability in the market and more certainty, then that builder confidence will start to the buyer confidence will start to increase, and there will be builder and buyer optimism, and we'll start to see those rates. But we're certainly see plenty of inventory here to choose from, and plenty of money still coming into the area. And I know for a fact, I talk to people all the time that are just waiting and waiting and waiting. And when that happens, when prices do start to come back up again, you better hurry, because that's when prices are going to start to increase rather rapidly. Days on the market. So June 2025, we had 55 days on the market. March 2025, 62 days on the market. And June 2024, 47 days on the market. Now, over the last year, we haven't really seen much increase there. Really, for the last couple of years, it's been right around 45 to 65. It goes up and down, fluctuates, just depending. However, this is the time frame. If you put a nice house on the market that meets all the bells and whistles and it's priced accordingly, it's still going to take you about 50 days to sell your property. Now, if the house needs a lot of work, needs some updating, maybe it's in an area that insurance is a lot higher, or there's flood zones, then it could take longer to sell your house, or you may have to lower that price accordingly. But right now, median days on the market is 55 days. Closed sales. This is what I like to look at. This is my number one statistic that I love to see, is how many closed sales we had, because this tells us all about the buyers, how many buyers are here in the area. So June 2025, we had 461 closed sales here in the city of Cape Coral for single family homes. That's going to jump up a little bit more, but a number like that should tell you that we still have plenty of people buying here. It's not a ghost town. People haven't just turned off the switch and we're not seeing any buyers. They're here, they're buying, and they're buying the right homes with the right opportunities and the right price points. So March 2025, 3 months ago, we saw 540 closed homes sold. And then June 2024, 1 year ago, 487 closed sales. Now this 461 is probably going to jump up a little bit, because sometimes people are delayed getting their numbers put into the MLS, some of the realtors. But I say we'll probably end up around 470, slightly less than we were last June, 487, to give you an idea of where we're at. So for the first half of 2025 here in the city of Cape Coral, we sold over 2,600 homes. 2,600 homes came on the market and were sold. They changed hands. Last year, it was right around 2,800 homes. So it's about 200 less year over year for the first 6 months of the year. And I was a little bit concerned about that starting out, because we did start out really slow in January and February. And I thought, wow, our sales aren't as good as they were last year. What's going on? Even though we're close, but we started out really slow. So I was concerned at the beginning of the year. However, if you take into account the challenge with the market, the uncertainty, the tariffs going up and down, and the stock market going up and down, and just a lot of uncertainty. And then you take into account that our Canadian friends from the north, a lot of them chose not to come down this year. They just stayed in Canada, and they chose not to come to Florida this year to buy. And so that affected things as well. So we really had a fairly strong market here in the city of Cape Coral, selling 2,600 homes the first 6 months. And I believe if those other factors wouldn't have been there, we probably would have sold a lot more. It would have been well over 3,000 homes. But we'll see how things shake out for next season. Once we get into January, February, March, April, May, and June, I do expect to see a large increase, unless something goes terribly wrong with current events or interest rates can go higher. However, we are seeing them start to drop at the moment. Let's look at trends. So this is the current trend, the end of June, or the end of May, the 1st of June. New listings, we had 150. This is the week of June 1st. Sold 165, terminated 47, expired 162, and then pending 138. Price increase 12, price decrease 399. So these are homes that were not priced correctly, so they weren't selling. They were just sitting on the market, and they did have to drop them a bit. Now, what I want you to look at is new listings, 150. New listings. We actually had 164 come to the market. Usually in July, we start to see less homes coming to the market than in June. However, that was a little bit higher. Sold homes, 165, 163, about the same as the first week of June as it was the first week of July. And then we jump on down to pending, 138 pending, and then 126. So not too far off there either. But this is strange. We had 45 price increases in July 1st. That's the most increases I've seen in quite a long time. So we're going to monitor that and see why house prices are increasing as opposed to decreasing. Now, with that being said, we still had 341 homes decrease. That's a lot less than 399, but it's still a substantial amount. And I think what's going on is a lot of the sellers, and I know the sellers, a lot of them that I go and talk to, and I do a lot of house calls to check with sellers, and they call me and because they know my knowledge of the market, and they want to know what they can sell their house for and if it's the right time. And we talk about what their needs are and their motivations, and then we determine if it's the best time for them or if they're going to wait a year or two. But I'd be happy to chat with you as well. If you are in the market or you're thinking about selling your home, we can investigate that and see if it is the right time for you depending on your situation. All right, other key numbers. So sold price per square foot, $240 a square foot. That's good to know. That has come down just a bit over the last couple of months. We have been right around 244, 245. So currently for the month of June, we were at $240 a square foot. List price received, 97.7%. This is actually pretty incredible. So of the last list price, homes are selling for just 2%, 2.3% under what the list price is. So when that number is going in, agents are going in and they're offering, and contracts are being accepted at 97.7% of the list price. However, a lot of my buyers are actually doing a lot better than that. But it's just a matter of finding the right sellers, the motivated ones that definitely want to sell their homes. But I thought that number was going to be lower. However, it's sitting there at 97.7%. New listings. We had 608 new listings come to the market here in the city of Cape Coral for the month of June. And months of inventory. Now, this is something that's quite surprising, and you really have to take a step back and say, what's the media talking about? What are these YouTube videos about the Cape Coral market falling apart talking about? Months of inventory, 6.5 months of inventory here in the city of Cape Coral. That means if not another new house came to the market, based on the amount of buyers that we have here, it would take us 6.5 months to completely sell out all of our houses. That by no means is a market that's falling apart, that's crashing, that's in ill, it's not, it's the sign that everything is just fine. 4 to 6 months is actually a neutral market. Anything under 4 months is going to be a seller's market. Anything over 6 months is a buyer's market. We are just barely in a buyer's market. And I know that article on the Wall Street Journal, they really wanted to paint things as being a lot more bleak than they are. And actually, I'm going to do a video on that. So make sure that you're watching the next few days. Next week, I believe it's going to come out, where I go through that article and we're going to talk about every single step of that article, what's right, what's wrong. And because there is some truth to it, but a lot of it is just misrepresentation. So we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper, and I'm going to devote a whole video just to talk about that article. But anyways, back to this. Months of inventory, 6.5 months of inventory, not a terrible market at all. Now, as we go into the summer months, into August, September, October, that number is going to increase because we typically see buyer demand start to decrease. Once kids go back to school, a lot of the families, it takes them out of the market. The retirees are still up in the north enjoying their summers, so they're not down here looking to purchase their winter homes. But once we get the first snow up there in the north, that starts to jolt a few folks and they come on down. So if you are thinking about buying for next year, now it might be a great time. Anytime between the middle of August and October, the end of October, is when you're probably going to find some of the best opportunities here. We're going to start to see increased inventory until we get back to the next season, and prices start to decrease as well. All right, we like to talk about key numbers and what drives the market. So let's look at this real quick. Inflation peaked at 9.1% back in June 2022. That was the highest. We're now at 2.54%. Last month we were at 2.3%. So we have increased a little bit right there. Interest rates, November 2023, we topped out at about just over 8%. We're now sitting at 6.72%. This is right around the lowest we've been all year. Last month, they were about 6.9%, 6.8%. So we are starting to drop just a bit. Now, our target 6.5%. Anytime, if we can sustain under 6.5 for 3 or 4 months, I think we'll be in a great shape. Now, if we go below 6%, that's where we think that everything's going to start to loosen up, and we're going to see a lot of buyers jump into the market. And I know Trump's putting a lot of pressure right now on the Federal Reserve, on Powell, to try to get him to lower interest rates to loosen up the market a bit. But to be honest, there's other markets in our country, and this is where I'm seeing a lot of my buyers come, upstate New York, a lot on the East Coast, some markets in California, that still they can sell their house for a very nice amount of money. They can pull a lot of equity out of there, and they can come down here and buy incredible opportunities right on Gulf Access Canals for substantially cheaper. Keeps the money in their pocket, but also start enjoying this amazing life here in Southwest Florida. So not all markets are the same. Ours, according to the Wall Street Journal, is the worst. So if you're in one of those better ones, you may want to take advantage right now and sell your house there and then pull that money on down here and start living the dream here in Southwest Florida. Unemployment is at 4.1% and staying steady. Last month it was at 4.2%. We've seen it fluctuate right around 4% for the last couple of years. It doesn't seem to be going up, doesn't seem to be going down. I know the Federal Reserve is looking at this number. If it does go up, then interest rates probably would come back down, but our unemployment is very low. So we're doing great right there. It's been that way for the last couple of years. Supply, currently in the city of Cape Coral, we have 2,994 single-family homes available on the market for purchase. That number there, I thought it would be above 3,000. We're actually below 3,000. I think it's a great number year over year. We're sitting at 11.2% increase, which we saw our big increases about a year ago, 2 years ago, where we were jumping up like 20%, 30% in inventory year over year. Now we started to stabilize right around the 10%, 11% range. And I expect that to be right there for the next several months until we zero out, and then we'll start going back the other way once inventory starts going down even further. I would love to see us stay right around 25 to 2,700 homes here in the market in Cape Coral. I think that would indicate a healthy market for both buyers and sellers. 25 to 2,700 would be a healthy place to be. Demand. Population is currently estimated right around 240,000 people. Next 5 years, we're expected to be at 260,000 people. So when people talk about Cape Coral and everyone's leaving Cape Coral, that's just not the case. There's a Cape Coral group here that for the city of Cape Coral has thousands and thousands of members. And you see a lot of negative stuff on there because there are those people that absolutely hate Cape Coral. But there was a poll that went out and it said, I love Cape Coral, I like Cape Coral, I don't like Cape Coral, I'm moving, I hate Cape Coral. And the truth came out. So right around 90% of the people said, oh, we absolutely love being in Cape Coral. We like Cape Coral. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to raise families. It's a great place to retire. It's a great place if you love living on the water. And there were about 8% of the people said, oh no, I got to go. I hate it here. And one of the biggest reasons that people hate it here, to be very direct, is jobs. Unless you're in the healthcare sector, or maybe you're doing, you have a trade where you can get a job doing that, or you're doing sales, income here or wages here is fairly minimum. So it's hard to purchase a home. It's hard to live as a family if the jobs aren't here. And a lot of people commute over to Fort Myers, but even there, the jobs aren't wonderful. So you have to consider that when you're moving to the area. Remote workers are doing just fine. They can bring that income that they're making wherever they're at and come on down. Retirees are doing great here as well. So there's a lot of opportunity here, but if you are moving to the area thinking that you're going to get a job paying you what you were paying back in New York or California, Colorado, Chicago, anywhere in those areas, you might be a bit surprised. So I always tell people, make sure you come down and check out the job market prior to moving on down, just to know exactly what to expect, because that can lead to a very disappointing experience if you don't have a job that meets your needs here in the Cape Coral area. And not that we're that expensive, because we're fairly minimal. It's just that the jobs here aren't great, to be honest. So is now the time to buy? Absolutely. I think that now's the time to buy. This is what I've been saying for the last couple of months. I think that you have so many options in inventory. We did start to see that shrink just a bit, but our buyer pool is also shrinking as we go into the fall. So you have many options. You can choose the home that you want and at the right price point. The buyer's market, it's a buyer's market. It's the end of season. So season is over. We do see a little bit of pickup here in the summer with families, but that's starting to dissipate as well. So that buyer demand, that buyer competition that you might have is starting to slip as well. So if you are thinking of buying in the next couple of months, it's going to be pretty amazing. So give me a call. We'll chat about that and put together a plan to help you find the right property at the right price point. And sellers are willing to negotiate. This is where I'm seeing it at. The biggest advantages right now for buyers is that sellers are willing to negotiate. When the Wall Street Journal puts out ads or puts out articles like that, when the Redfin puts out their articles, it scares a lot of sellers. And a lot of sellers are overpriced, and they understand that but they don't understand until their home sat on the market for a little while that they are overpriced. And then by the time they start to come back down, then they start chasing the market, and that can be a bad position as well. But then it puts it into an area where they're really motivated, especially if they need to sell their house for because maybe they're moving out of the area, maybe they're struggling paying their payments. Sellers are motivated. So good opportunities for buyers, and you got to know where to look, and you got to know what you're looking for, and you have to know what your budget is, including insurance and taxes. So is now the time to sell here in Cape Coral? That's a great question. And like I've said the last few months, it may not be the best time to sell unless you have a good reason to sell. Now, if you're motivated, if you need to sell, maybe you can't make your payments, maybe you need to move up north, maybe your job transferred you. A lot of people came here with mobile jobs, being able to work from home, and their employers have called them back to the office, and so they have needed to leave for reasons like that. Oftentimes people get a little bit older and they need to move back north with their with their kids, and so that can lead to the necessity to sell a home as well. So you really need to know, why do you want to sell your house? Now, that article in the Wall Street Journal talked about 8% of homeowners being underwater. What that means is they paid more for their home than what they can sell it for now. 8%, that's not a small number. However, that's people that bought their houses back in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and they do not have equity. Actually, it's negative equity. However, the key to that is just to hold your house a little bit longer. We know that real estate changes all the time. We know real estate always goes up. It's just a matter of time. So don't panic. If you're underwater, hold your house, keep making those payments, and before you know it, you'll be back on top again and start building that equity. So just take a deep breath. If that's you, don't start to panic. It's not a terrible place to be, because your payments are the same as they were a few years ago. It's just how paper is right now, and those values are going to start coming back up again, and then you can sell your home or do what you need to do. So what types of homes are selling? You have to understand that right now, brand new homes are selling great. Builders are putting them at nice prices where people are able to come in and take advantage of that. Homes in great locations are selling. The homes that are having a challenge selling is older homes in flood zone areas. They're having a bit of a challenge. Some of the $1 million plus homes are having a bit of a challenge because the sellers are expecting higher than what they're actually worth right now, because they remember what they were worth a couple of years ago, and it's just not the same. And then, of course, insurance and houses that need updated. So if that's an older roof, that's going to hurt you. It's going to be real hard to sell your home if the insurance company won't insure it, or if the insurance rates are going to be very high. So think about that. And then, of course, updating older homes that have not been updated since the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. They're creating a challenge for selling as well. Strategic selling. So if you do need to sell your home, you say, Barry, I do absolutely need to sell my home. I'm motivated. We need to make sure that we find the right buyer. And we do have strategic selling to attract buyers right now. We use social media, YouTube, we use AI. We've started to really increase our AI usage to help us position homes properly in the market to get the most exposure. And then, of course, you have to have a realtor that understands the market currently and understands each street, because your house right in your neighborhood might be very different than the house in a neighborhood just down the road. So you need an agent that understands the different aspects of the Cape Coral market, how values work here, how they go up and down, and where we're heading. Okay, that concludes this market update for July 2025. I hope you found a lot of great information here. I was able to help you understand the market a little bit better. The sky's not falling. We're still here. We're still enjoying life and loving it here in the city of Cape Coral. There are a few that don't, but the majority of us love living here and love being a part of the city and community. Now, just to give you a quick heads up, it's July 4th here, and we've got Red, White, and Boom, which is the biggest fireworks display here in Southwest Florida. Absolutely amazing. They shut down the bridge going over to Fort Myers, and they do a big party all day long. So make sure you hit that up next year when you're living here, or if you're not living here, I'm sorry. A lot of people want to spend their time in the summers in the north, but Cape Coral is a great place to be in the summer as well. So looking forward to chat with you. If you need anything, reach out to me. Go ahead and click that link in the description to book your complimentary consultation. I'd love to chat with you and put a strategy in place to help you out. We work with a lot of out-of-town buyers and sellers, and I have the systems in place to be able to help you make a quick and easy transition. making realty dreams a reality here in the city of Cape Coral.